checking out the Swan River. And what better way to segue into some racing? We've got the Utes out on track, Stephen Johnson alongside me, and it is the V8 Ute Series, protected by Hawkeye. And looking forward to this battle. It's round 2 in the championship and the first race of their weekend. Interesting front row matchup, this one. Roel Harris and Chris Walton. Roel Harris actually owns a business with Chris Walton's partner. It's a clothing label run out of the Gold Coast. And if these two take each other out in turn 1, they're both going to have to go and answer to her.
Could be an interesting board meeting next week.
So they run a little designer label called Agenda down there, and watches, and they're going to be opening up a cafe and everything like that. So I know where we'll be going, Stevie, when we head over.
Especially now that we've given a plug. Roel and Chris, we want free coffee, please.
That's a cool angle, isn't it? Up on top of Adam Mardrum's car.
It's going to be very interesting next year with these new rules to see some new manufacturers come in. You know, as you pointed out before, Roel Harris, you know, got Mazda on the car, and it's going to be very West End Mazda, I think it is. It's just come on, so I think maybe that is a hint, you know.
Waiting for that green flag to be waved in the air. Here we go. A bumper grid lined up. We've got 30 of them out there, and they've got 14 laps to cause a bit of chaos. Set for a start in Perth, race number 1 for the weekend. The V8 Utes protected by Hawkeye. The reigning champ, he has the inside line to turn 1. Time to drop the hammer and away we go. We've got a staller at the back. That looks like maybe even Wakefield, who potentially didn't go anywhere. We'll see who it was as we go into turn 1, and Roel Harris is your leader. Fisher up the inside. He's got Hansford going the long way, and that's not the spot to be. On board with Jero Gray.
Harris and Walton got a cracking start. They've pulled out 4 or 5 car lengths already. It's going to be very interesting to see. 14 laps is a fair way around here, and these tyres do go off quite badly. So it's going to be down to who can drive the straightest. Very, very similar as the Roel Harris had lays massive black rubber coming down the hill into Cole.
These cars are loose at the best of times, especially around a track that's notorious for not having much grip. Here's a bit of a dive bomb. It was the car of McNally. He pulled out of it, Jesse Dixon, and Adam Mardrum going toe-to-toe in the middle of the field. A couple of rookies from last year. The thirsty camel car of Craig Dontis now up and over the hill for the first time, and hard on the brakes. These cars are heavy. They're very hard to pull up, and here we go. Jeremy Gray and Elliot Barber. Who's going to be the bravest one here? Barber's going to eat a bit of curb here on the outside. Oh, there he goes. Manages to slot his way back in, and Minimal's paint has been swapped for this first lap.
At the moment.
Don't worry, there's still a few more to go. Jeremy Gray still having this argument with the Just Car Insurance Ute of Elliot Barber. Now Barber yields that spot. And we're fighting a bit further down the pack. That was for 9th and 10th, but Harris is your race leader. Tacking under the back of this one as well right now is Ben Dunn, who did a good job to qualify 11. Just missed out on making that top 10 final leg of qualifying.
So his tyres will actually be a few laps younger than the guys in front of him. So, you know, that may pay advantage for him later in the race, certainly when it comes around the last sort of 4 or 5 laps to go.
Already the battle at the lead is starting to heat up. Roel Harris is the race leader, the all-purpose number 1. He's going to have to watch it, though, because he's got Killer Walton. We don't call him Killer for no reason at all. Is it going to be a bit of a move down the bottom of the hill? No. He's being a very reserved Killer at the moment.
He is calculating. Now, Fisher has actually gotten onto the back of these 2 guys quite fast. He was 4 or 5 behind, and Hansford doing the fastest lap of the race.
That's Spud Wood getting pushed way up wide. He's going to go off the back of the curbs as everybody tries to find their own bit of real estate down at turn 1. Ben Dunn did a little bit of pushing there as he pushes Jero Gray around turn number 1. And they're tucked in behind Elliot Barber. That's from 9th and down from there. They're behind Nathan Pretty. Haven't spoken much about Pretty yet. He's circulating currently in 8th.
That's interesting because obviously the next race is drawn position where they invert a certain amount of cars. They don't know what's going to be inverted because it's a marble draw after the race. The winner does draw it after they win this race. So you can't just say we're going to invert the top 10 and when someone gets into 10th, just hang there. So they've actually got to go because it could be the top 8, could be the top 6, could be the top 15. So they've all got to race and you know, make sure that they do a good job as Walton into the lead down at Cole.
Yeah, that's the way you do it. Turn 6 and turn 7 are the good spots. Oh, Roel Harris. That's a Valentino Rossi-esque move. As soon as you get past, pass him back straight again. And that's what he's managed to do at the bottom of the hill. And this is going to go on down to turn 1. Here we go.
Now, while they're doing this, all the other guys are just line astern now behind them, catching up. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do between now and the end of the race.
It's a long way around there for the all-purpose pest control car, and he's going to have to slot back into second. I actually thought that Walton was probably the quicker car in qualifying yesterday, and so too did Royal Harris. He actually chose to qualify behind him, and he thought if I follow him around and just brake later than him, then I'll go quicker than him. It worked a treat.
Also brake later, maybe a little bit of slipstreaming as well, and as you know, very, very close in times in these. I mean, you know, a tenth of a second can mean sort of 8 or 10 spots, so to get that tiny little bit of advantage from being behind someone and that extra carrot chasing them, I think it's done rather well good. But as we can see, Chris is just pulling a slight gap at the moment.
Riding on board with the thirsty camel car of Craig Dontis. Had such a good weekend at home in Adelaide. He actually is one of the organisers of the Clipsal 500 event, so there's no excuse for not performing on the streets of Adelaide in round number 1, but not quite having his own way here. He's back in 12th at the moment, and he's chasing around Ben Dunn. Hard on the brakes once again. These cars can handle the curbs a bit more. Now we're getting a bad sportsmanship flag at the moment. Wait to see if we can get a read on which number it is. And a Marjoram in the Auto 1 Ute goes flying across the grass. He's got McLeod up the inside. Now these two actually banged panels together in Adelaide. Brand new Ute this weekend for McLeod. Same to Harris actually. So plenty of new cars still coming into the category.
Yeah, you can see there, if you get pushed wide coming onto the pit straight, you can go outside of that exit curve and rejoin back onto the track. They can only do that a couple of times before they start getting looked at and penalised. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Replay of the start. Here we go. This is on board with Craig Dontis. And have a look how tight it is. Jeremy Gray in the IXL Ute moves over to the right. Not a bad start for Dontis at all. He managed to gap them up the middle. Hard on the brakes down into turn 1. And there was relatively minimal paint swapping. Here we go, battles on. There's a Kiwi on the outside there. Sam Barry, we saw him racing in Pukekohe as well, and he's decided that he'll do a bit of a trans-Tasman trip over, and this is going to be very brave stuff down the bottom of the hill. He's got Danny Bazadzik up the inside, and that looks like a Porsche GT3 graduate behind them, and Phil Woodbury. Phil Woodbury's got a bit of a battle ahead of him this year. There's a slide out of turn 7's a big one for both Bazadzik and Barry. Barry's going to have to run back up the inside at turn 1. Someone's had a monster lockup down there this weekend. And good job. Oh, Woodbury's going to try and get up the middle in the Kubota car.
A slight lock up there for Gill on the right front. As we say that, Chris Walton just set the fastest lap of the race. 4 tenths faster than Royal Harris on that last lap. Harris could be still battling with Fisher and Hansford though.
Bit of damage towards the left rear of that car. Oh, someone with a big lockup down there at turn 4. Riding on board with Jeremy Gray. As we said earlier, he made the trip over to New Zealand to race in the NZ V8s. So too did Chris Walton. Walton's actually leading that point score over there, and he had a lot of success racing in the NZ V8s last season. So he's a busy boy, Chris Walton. Likes to race go-karts, just about anything. Over the hill we go in the V8 Ute Series, protected by Hawkeye. We've still got plenty of racing still to come in this one. A short commercial break. And on the other side of this one, we're going to finish it off. Race 1 for the weekend of the V8 Utes. Chris Walton leading the first race of the weekend. Over the hill he goes, and he's ahead of the defending #1 champion. Oh, big damage. That's one of the local boys, Matty Nolan. I say local, he actually lives on the Gold Coast, but he works over here in WA. And he's going to get stuck, is he? That's the approach to turn 6 off the bottom of the hill. That is a bad spot to be stuck.
That's a bad spot. That's definitely going to have a safety car come out, because that's blind. It's just had a suspension failure. Oh, he's had an absolute suspension failure there. Look at that. He hasn't, unless he's had a touch early on in the race and done some damage.
I know he's from the Gold Coast. That's the sort of stuff we're used to seeing on the Gold Coast, with suspension breakages a bit like that, with the big curbs, and that's going to leave him stranded in a pretty awful spot. Rick Gill, owner of Rick Gill Motorcycles here in WA. He's not a newbie, but he's had a few punts here around in the V8 Ute Series. Now, remember, we've got a car on the racing line on the outside here.
We're still under green 2. So hopefully they see him.
Oh, and off goes George Miedeke. I think he may have made contact with Matty Nolan. That's a dangerous spot to make contact, and he's gone off backwards at the approach to turn 6. He's going to try and get this car moving again. What has happened here? Okay, here we go. Yokohama replay. Nolan stuck out the racing line.
They're going to have to put a safety car out. This is so dangerous.
Clips him, and that could have been so much worse. Hansford just got around him. There's big damage to the left-hand side of the IC car.
Wow, that's surprising. I would have bet my bottom dollar that would have been a safety car for sure. That's a blind, fast right-hand corner coming over there. You actually can't see the exit curve until you're actually on it. And he was just past that exit curve. That could have been a horrendous accident.
So we've got 2 fairly beaten up Utes and a bit of circle work, bit of cutting up the grass. We've seen that with Utes before.
He's smashed, absolutely. That right rear rim is smashed in half, and there's a fair bit of damage to those 2 cars.
We're still green. If anything, more contact. We've got over turn 5, and Reece McNally's involved. Off he goes.
Absolutely, and Nichols.
Man, that was large. They made contact at a corner which is about 130 clicks through there. It's about a 4th gear turn. And Reece McNally, who was on the podium here last year
as well, was involved in that.
Wow. So he's gone spearing off at a pretty fast part of the racetrack. We're still green. It's turning into a bit of a demo derby out there. Race number 1. We're used to carnage in the V8 Utes, but this is some crazy stuff. Adam Marjoram up the inside, late under brakes. Can he get that move stuck? He does. Here we go, replay. Now, what's happened here? Just hooked up on each other.
No idea. Yeah, it looks like they've just left front onto right rear, and it's hooked up and busted the... We've seen a couple of suspension failures here now with a couple of cars, so...
Man, that was a nasty shot, wasn't it? Just hooked up, open wheel style.
Didn't even look like he started turning for that right-hander at the top of the hill, so you watch here.
Riding aboard Craig Dontis. Oh, see, maybe Nichols was a bit slow coming through there as well. Maybe McNally got onto the back of him a lot quicker than he thought he would. And in the end, the Clean Group car is stuck off the exit of turn 5. Meanwhile, Walton is still your race leader from Harris, Fisher, Hansford and Cedars. It's an all-forward love-in at the moment. Top 5, all forwards. And finally, Kim Jane and Nathan Pretty raising the flag for the general.
1.8 seconds. So 2 seconds now, Chris Walton's pulled out.
Tyre conservation mode from here because
absolutely. He's still got quite a few more race laps to do for the rest of the weekend, and as you can see, it's going to make it very hard as we get a massive slide coming off the last corner.
Cedars driving defensively.
Barber. Is it Barber? Yeah, it is Barber.
Cedars will go up the inside here, and on the outside will be Jane. So these 2 guys battling right now have won the first race at this track for the last 2 years. Nathan Pretty's going to be a bit cagey here, winner of race 2 at this track last year. Can he get a bit of a run up through the S's?
We've got 4 more laps to go. Pretty has been quick here, and he's very, very good at tyre conservation too. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he can't get past Jane and possibly Cedars here by the end. He's all over the back of Jane at the moment, and knowing Nathan, he'll have a go down here at Cole.
Oh, Nathan Pretty.
He's trying.
Desperate move. The CQ Group Commodore Ute is fighting to be the #1 Holden in the field at the moment. And he was pretty unlucky not to win the title last year. I feel like that qualifying effort here in Perth for, broke a motor and unfortunately went to the back of the field for the first race and cost him a huge hit in the points.
Well, you can see at the moment, like the whole field gets qualifying points now too. So it is very, very important to get a good qualifying position. You can gain 2 or 3 points on someone in front of you on the championship. Makes a big difference at the end of the year, and we saw that with how close it was last year with Nathan and Ryle.
Also, Cedars was very much in that battle last year. That massive crash on the Gold Coast, you got penalised some championship points for that one as well, and that kind of put him out of the deal. Now, Rick Gill, the local boy, has been pinged for curb hopping. He's been given a pit lane drive-through, and I like this one. The entire field has been given the bad sportsmanship flag. We're going to penalise everybody.
It's like, come on, boys, use the black stuff, please.
Yeah, it's for curb hopping at turn 7, I'd imagine, the exit curb out there. And great liberties have been taken with those exit curbs so far. The Super shock absorbers have been given a bit of a run so far this weekend.
On Wayne Makefield's car there, you could just see that on the back left corner, that little camera sticking up there. That was what was giving us some fantastic shots with some really close racing in the first opening couple of laps with Wayne now, side by side.
Looking off the back of this car at Jesse Dixon, former successful driver in the Shannon Supercar Showdown a few years ago.
There you go, Craig Dondas with 4 million sponsors on his car. Good on him.
The mobile billboard, Craig Dondas.
Jesse Dixon right up the back of him at the moment. Gets good under brakes into the last corner. Just losing a little bit off across the start line into turn 1. We've still got 2 laps to run, so he's got plenty of time.
Jeremy McLeod is the man behind them at the moment, trying to make up the last few spots that he can right now. But that could be pretty good for the reverse grid race. Having a guess, somewhere around 13th, 12th might be the number that we end up drawing.
Well, notoriously, Perth and Darwin are the 2 tracks that can possibly have the biggest swing in reverse grid for the second race. So obviously it depends on track size and width, etc. And those 2 tracks are quite good for it. And we'll see what comes off it after, I would assume, Chris Walton possibly going to pull the marble out at the end of the day.
He will be, and just how big that number is. I know Adam Mardrum down in 14th. We'll be hoping it's fairly large. Maybe he'll be getting a lucky ride through a bit later in the weekend. Here we go, Jesse Dixon with a drive out of turn 6. Thought about it. Had a bit of a look up the inside of the Thirsty Camel car, but can't quite get the drive, can he? To be able to position the car to the right-hand side where he needs it at the bottom of the hill.
Chris Walton pulls out, he's pulled out another 0.8 of a second.
We thought that he had some serious car speed this weekend. Rookie of the Year a few years ago. Proved last year that he's aggressive but can win races. And this year could be the year that we see Chris Walton rise to the top of the V8 Ute Series. He'll be level on points for the weekend after this race with Royal Harris after qualifying was taken into account. Here we go, Adam Mardrum, local boy, did well last year in the top 5, doing a double degree in commerce and maybe business or engineering, something crazy like that. I don't know how these guys can manage to be a race car driver and full-time study as well. It's crazy.
Final lap for Walton. You can see him nice and smooth, straight out of the cold corner there, up the back straight for the final time.
Now, Rentco are celebrating 20 years as a company, and they've apparently got like 200 employees or something crazy watching him this weekend. There's nothing like winning in front of the sponsors, and that's exactly what Chris Walton is going to do. Race number 1 for the weekend. Round 2 of the championship. Chris Killer Walton, take a bow. It was there, home and home.
This is tight.
Battle for third is on here. Hand to it on the outside, launching a bit of an attack at the Jesus car, which is Andrew Fisher. And Fisher, with a couple of Hail Marys, comes home in third. Meanwhile, the battle further back through the field is still on, and Craig Dontas will scramble home just outside the top 10. Ben Dunn, good job to come home inside that top 10 as well. And finally, Ford getting closer to leveling the ledger. That's easy for me to say.
Leveling the ledger?
Leveling the ledger. It's now 7-6 in favour of Holden, and Chris Walton takes a win over here. And, oh man, have a look how many Fords we've got as we go flying down the order. Kim Jane first of the Commodore Utes. He's down there in position number 6, and problems for Slick Miedeke.